All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations, hopefully they out there pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bashem Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back, all right, to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Shai, all right. And what I want to get into today, is a lesson, that's entitled, walking, okay, in the spirit. What does it mean to walk in the spirit? Because we hear that often, within this ministry. And when we say walking in the spirit, well, what spirit are we walking in? Okay. What spirit are we walking in? Well, we're walking in the spirit of Yahawashi, and you study Yahawashi in his life when he was here. He was a working class Israelite, pretty much he would have been a Jake that had a trade, you see. And he was about, his father's business. He was serious minded when it came to the ministry. He was disciplined. Okay. He didn't, overindulge, in Rome. All right. And then his main focal point, okay, was the kingdom. All right. That was at the forefront of his thinking, okay, of his reasoning. Everything was rooted back to the kingdom. A lot of parables he went into, well, there was parables about the kingdom. Okay, so when we say walk in the spirit, well, what spirit are we speaking of? Well, the spirit of Yahawashi. Okay, that's the spirit that we are to walk in. Okay, as we move, and then he comes in the volume of the book. That's why to be in the spirit, we really have to get into this book. We really have to get into, being occupied, okay, in the scriptures. Matter of fact, let's get that. We'll start off with that, then we'll get that in Romans. Okay, well, let's go here to the book of Sirach, chapter 39 and verse 1. It says, but he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High and is occupied in the meditation thereof will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient and be occupied in prophecies, man. Okay, so when you say being in the spirit, well, okay, we are giving our mind, okay, over to the Most High. We should be occupied, all right, in these scriptures, man, in these prophecies. It's a lot of practical wisdom that we can apply, real time. You go in the book of Sirach, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, even when you read accounts, there are certain accounts, that we can learn from, like that we can learn from this account and apply, okay, a certain way of thinking real time. Okay. So being in the spirit, we got to get in the spirit of this book, which is Yahawashi. Okay. So that's why when you go to Romans 8, we gotta tap into the wisdom, all right, the spirit of wisdom that's in this book. You see, because we can't keep the law perfectly, but there's a lot of wisdom of this book that we can apply real time right now. You go to the technicalities of the law. Well, we're not in our sovereignty. We're not set up, okay, to keep the law perfectly. Okay, but we have all this wisdom to walk in the spirit, okay, which makes us blameless, man. Okay. Romans 8 and 1, it says, there is no condemnation. All right. It said, there is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Yahawashi HaMashiach, who walk not after the flesh, but after the spirit. Okay. You see, we don't operate, our agendas is not based off the flesh anymore, what the flesh wants. Okay. Now the Lord set it up to where we have this flesh to enjoy pleasures, but there's an order to it. You see, that's the thing. People think when we talk about not being in the flesh, it means that you don't enjoy pleasures. No, that means that your life isn't centered around pleasing the flesh. Because There's nothing wrong with pleasing the flesh in its right order according to wisdom. You see, there's an order, there's a wisdom to pleasing the flesh. There's a moderation when it comes to pleasing the flesh. Okay? So that's what this wisdom is teaching us. All right? Because the flesh has to be moderated or to destroy you. Okay? And see what we've done now, because you go into this word walk. In the Greek, we always get into it, walk in the spirit. Okay? Because if you're in the spirit of YAHAWASHI, you're not condemned. If you're doing, if your mentality, your mindset is that of YAHAWASHI, which is to push the kingdom, you know, constantly, apply this wisdom, love thy neighbors thyself, love the Most High with all our heart and soul. If that's our mindset, then we're going to be blameless, man, because we're going to have a conduct that's pleasing to our power. Okay, we don't have to have 100% cotton on to do right by our brother. All right, to teach the truth to the congregation, man. To make sacrifices for the ministry's sake. We don't have to have 100% cotton on to do that. Okay, we don't have to have fringes on every outfit to do that. You see? So going into this word walk in the Greek, peripateo, okay, which means let's see, peripateo. Yep, it says Hebrews, okay, for to live. It said to make one's way, progress, to make do of opportunities, man. And one of the opportunities that we have is to serve. You see, we have an opportunity to serve. We have an opportunity to grow in understanding in this grace period. The Lord has made it convenient for us to grow in understanding. We have all type of study tools. Okay, He's making it convenient for us to serve and to teach and to edify and to feed His sheep. All type of devices and softwares and studios. Just for teaching His word. So the Lord has made it convenient. All right. And He has created an opportunity for us to serve and really tap in. Okay. That's being in the spirit, making use of opportunities to be in the spirit, man. Okay. And it says to regulate one's life, to conduct oneself, to pass one's life, man. So we should regulate our life in the spirit. Okay. Not in the flesh. Not our life shouldn't be centered around, pleasing the flesh. Okay. A life of pleasure. Okay, pleasures are, pleasures are lawful. All right, when done in order and moderation. Okay, but that's not the purpose of our existence, man. Okay, we exist to, all right, walk in the spirit. Everything else is on the side. All right, the main course is to be in the spirit, man. All right, and to find that balance. Each brother balance is different. Okay, but it should be a heavy dose of walking in the spirit. Okay, so let's go here to the book of Galatians chapter 5. All right. And all right, Galatians 5:13, it said, for brethren, you have been called unto liberty. Only use not liberty for occasion to flesh, but by love serve one another. So we have a liberty in where we're not immediately condemned by the law. Because in the law, as soon as you break the Sabbath, out of there. Okay? You eat unlawful food, out of there. You see? Adultery, everything that you out of there. Because you understand, we came into this thing worthy of death. We came into YAHAWASHI just as that woman was brought to YAHAWASHI and committed, she was found, okay, in the act of adultery. Guess what? When we came to YAHAWASHI, we was guilty of the act of adultery. But what did Yahawashi say? Go and sin no more. Because the adultery we was guilty of was idolatry, man. Because we was Christians, we was Islam, whatever we was into. Okay, that was adultery. That was spiritual adultery. Okay? But what did Yahawashi say? I forgive you, go and sin no more. Because we all came to Yahawashi guilty of death. When we heard the brother speaking and the word was being brought down to us, that was us being brought to Yahawashi, and we was guilty as hell. Okay? So we came into this liberty to where we're not immediately condemned for our actions. All right. And this liberty was not for us to go and do as I will, but to serve one another. You see, we use this grace period to where we don't have the burden, okay, of the first covenant on us. Okay, the consequences that come with violating that first covenant. You see, Yahawashi took that away. Okay, to where you're not immediately put to death for these things. Okay. So within that liberty that was afforded to us by Yahawashi, we should take that liberty to serve, to be in the spirit. Like Yahawashi, he was always in the spirit. You see, you read the gospel, man, Yahawashi, every situation that was in, he would turn it to an analogy, to edify, and that's even now, because we can watch, we can chill in Netflix with the woman, okay, and we'll see something like, man, this remind me of a scripture. That could be a lesson. Okay, that's being in the spirit. You can't actually do a lesson 24/7. All right, but everything that we do, all right, becomes routed into something. It routes back to the spirit. You can be watching a football game and see, okay, something, a player name, or and then and it's routed back to spiritual things, man. Okay, so reading on, it says, for brethren, you have been called into liberty. This back in Galatians 5:13. Only use not liberty for occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Okay, and if we love our neighbors thyself, there's no way that we will teach you false doctrine. Y'all don't understand, like, Jake get mad at us for correcting these other groups. It mainly be the people that follow these other groups and have no clue what's going on. All right, but you don't understand if someone can sit with a straight face on camera, okay, and teach you a false doctrine and make it sound convincing. Because that's the thing. They're not just sincerely teaching you false doctrine. No, they put effort into it. They put time to make it seem convincing because they know it's some bullshit. So they put effort into the false doctrine. Okay? That's someone that hates you, man. Scripture say, love thy neighbor as thyself. Would you want your neighbor to be ill-informed coming into the times that we coming into? Okay? Would you want to slander your neighbor? Okay, and it can cause him harm. You know the things that they call us, the harm they can cause, which the harm it has caused. Some brothers have lost, particular things based on, those slanders and people jobs being called. Okay, love thy neighbors thyself. Would you call a fellow Israelite job, even if we disagree in the doctrine? We would never do that. Call them people job and try to get their livelihood disrupted, man. That's like putting a man to death. If you would destroy a man's livelihood, you will have no problem putting him to death if the opportunity presented itself, man. Okay. Well, see, Jakes try to get so technical and they try to make it seem like they just, 613 clothing line. Like what? 613. Jake is nowhere near 613. Jake ain't 813. No, 613 law. Jake ain't at 13, man. Okay? 7 or 8 on your best day. Okay? And it says, It says, for all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. But if you bite and devour one another, take heed that ye be not consumed, okay, one another. All right, this is the point. It says, this is, I say then, walk in the spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. See, when you're in the spirit, you don't have time to destroy yourself in the flesh. And see, it's so much going on now. If we're watchmen, if we're prophets, man, we should be so occupied, not only in the labor, but then also self-develop. Because Satan, like, we on the front line of a war. And Satan is always trying to penetrate here, find some type of leverage here, man. So it's a war here. It's a war, as we teach and we labor, so we have to be in the spirit to survive this spiritual warfare. Okay? Because in the flesh, we lose. Operating in the flesh, you lose. Okay? So when you're occupied in the spirit, you don't even have time on the schedule for the flesh like that. Okay? That's why we should try to occupy ourselves in the spirit, man, as much as possible. You see? And it says, for the flesh lusted against for the flesh lusted against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary the one to another, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would. Okay? So the flesh and the spirit got two different agendas. Okay? And that the flesh, that's why we have to pour into the spirit, so the spirit becomes strong enough to tame the flesh. Okay? Because you're going to we strengthen whatever we feed, and we should be feeding, okay, the spirit. Okay? We should be buffeting in the spirit and knowing how to spoon feed the flesh in righteousness, man. Okay? So, yeah, man, we been tasked, we've been called into this thing, to walk in the spirit. Okay, and the spirit is leading to life. The spirit is leading to something beyond, okay, what this flesh can conceive, what it can comprehend. Okay, which the flesh can only comprehend the here and the now. The spirit is long-term thinking, flesh short-term. Okay, so that's the point. Just wanted to bring that out, Lord will, you brothers. All right, and you sisters edified once again. You want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashi, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessing salutations to the whole elect. Shalom.